One of the benefits you have with your outreach is you can be hyper local. So some things you could do a quick search in the neighborhood or that area, 1 mile radius, half-mile radius. Has anything been listed or sold in the last 30 days? Hey, John, I know that you were looking at the home value at 123 Smith Street. There's been an interesting change in your neighborhood. I want to talk to you about it. Let me know when you have 5 minutes. The reason why you do this, let me give you another example. Hey, John, I know you were looking for your home value. I wanted to share 2 things that impact your value significantly. Do you have 5 minutes to chat about it? What a lot of you do is you call these leads and you say, hey, John, I know you contacted me about your home value, wanted to see if you had any questions, let me know. And you're burdening the consumer with having to have clarity on what their needs are and what they need to ask you. And that's one of the main reasons they don't call you back. But if you give them the easy path of calling you back and all they have to say is, yeah, you said you had 2 things to share with me. Or they call you back and say, yeah, you said you had a property or an update, and they can just sit and let you do your thing. The likelihood of them calling you back goes up significantly because they don't have to work. I'd like to start off the meeting. You can type it in the chat. I'd like to hear about the last couple weeks. If you've called any leads, what the outcome was. This is something that I do with my agents on my team. We call it roll call. We redefine success as action. A lot of times on calls like this, the only people that raise their hand are like, I got a listing appointment and we're listing next week. And we fail to celebrate I got cursed out or I got hung up on 4 times yesterday. And so Jessica has one. They said they had renters in it and aren't ready till November. Got it. Okay. So she got 1 objection there. Does anybody else have one? And I'll speak to Jessica's in just a moment. I've been getting a lot of just curious. I have a rental one too. I just started this week. So far, nothing to see what my value is. Okay. All right. So you guys are talking to people. So first, I just want to celebrate that, again, as I said a moment ago, we tend to only celebrate the wins, but candidly, the more success I enjoy in business and in life, the more I realize that really the process is what needs to be celebrated, right? The old cliche, it's not the destination, it's the journey. That is so true when it comes to prospecting leads. We tend to be so outcome focused that we forget that it really is a process. Part of it is us, part of it is the leads, and a little bit of in between. So Jessica and actually 2 Jessicas, Caldwell and Cutoff. So when you have somebody that's renting, what I would do is, first of all, people always think that their circumstance is super unique, and so when they hear you say a phrase like normally, or my other clients appreciated it when, and so when I say to you guys, I understand working with tenants can be a challenge. My other landlord clients that had tenants living in the home, what they appreciated about my service is, right? So they know that this is something that you've either dealt with or you're familiar with, or you could latch onto a partner. One of the other agents I work with does this all the time. One of the things that he does, right? So it's not necessarily just your experience, it's also the experience from those professionals around you, because one of the reasons why people hire us is our network, the access to information. What I would tell a homeowner that has a tenant in it, I'd find out, when the lease is up, and so in this case, November, so we're in March, so that's 8 months. The only way they'd really be able to sell the home is to someone that wants to be a landlord, right? At 8 months out. So some things that you would factor if they're going to list right now is how much do they owe on the home? How much equity is in the home, right? How much is it worth? And could you find someone to buy the property, keep it as a rental? Not saying it's a possibility for every single one, but it's definitely something that when you're doing your math, you should look at, because I personally, as an investor myself, would rather buy homes with tenants in them. So you guys know that's actually what I want, because if they're already living in it, I don't have to make it pretty. I don't have to do carpet, paint. I don't have to freshen it up. I don't have to market it. The thing that kills an investor's profit is vacancy. And so if I already have a tenant in there, man, that's fantastic. I'm thrilled with it. The other thing I would say is market time. So if the market time in the neighborhood is, let's say, 60 days, and the closing is going to be, let's say you scheduled out another 60 days, then that's 4 months. So, when you get to, I'm having to do the months in my head, July, I think, yeah, that's 4 months from November. You can start talking about listing it in July. That's not that far away. If the market time's longer than from the other listings in the area, you would do that. Now, if it's like a luxury neighborhood, the conversation's a little bit more complicated. Not everybody's going to buy a luxury home, but you could look into Airbnbs. Are Airbnbs allowed in that neighborhood? Not all neighborhoods allow them. If they are, what are the rates? Doctors love buying Airbnbs in the second half of the year because it's an amazing tax write-off because you can write off a loss of rental income for the entire year. So I'm not saying any of these things would have worked for you guys. Those are definitely some things to play around with. Any questions about that? Either of the Jessicas on the renters? You don't have to unmute, but if you did have something like, well, what about this or what about that? I know there was a question here on non-responsiveness of leads. Looks like you get a lead and people aren't responding to the bot, the SMS messages. One of the things that I would do is come from value. So nothing is working with the lead. They're not responding to anything that Meskula is sending. You want to approach it a little bit differently. One of the benefits you have with your outreach is you can be hyper local. So some things you could do, you could do a quick search in the neighborhood or that area, 1 mile radius, half-mile radius. Has anything been listed or sold in the last 30 days? Hey, John, I know that you were looking at the home value at 123 Smith Street. There's been an interesting change in your neighborhood. I want to talk to you about it. Let me know when you have 5 minutes. The reason why you do this, let me give you another example. Hey, John, I know you were looking for your home value. I wanted to share 2 things that impact your value significantly. Do you have 5 minutes to chat about it? What a lot of you do is you call these leads and you say, hey, John, I know you left me a mess or you contacted me about your home value. Wanted to see if you had any questions. Let me know. And you're burdening the consumer with having to have clarity on what their needs are and what they need to ask you. And that's one of the main reasons they don't call you back. But if you give them the easy path of calling you back and all they have to say is, yeah, you said you had 2 things to share with me, or they call you back and say, yeah, you said you had a property or an update, and they can just sit and let you do your thing. The likelihood of them calling you back goes up significantly because they don't have to work. When you call people and say, checking on you, seeing how it's going, let me know, checking on you, wanted to see if you had any questions, and they really better have their I's dotted and their T's crossed before they call you back, don't you think? Sounds like they're going to have to carry the conversation for you. I don't want to carry the conversation for the professional. I want to be served. I want to be told what's next. I want you to think for me. I don't want to think for you. That's not valuable to me. And so with SMS, when you're offering content, so if you text the lead, hey, John, I've got a guide on 3 things that impact your home value. I'd love to talk to you about it. Would you want me to text it or email it? Most people are going to say text. Cool. When do you have 5 minutes to chat about it, right? You're getting them to respond and then they're engaged in a conversation about the content, not about selling. It's very subtle, but it's actually quite significant. We want to talk to them about selling, but the truth of the matter is they don't want to talk about selling. And I know that sounds strange because you're buying seller leads, but it's the truth. They're just not interested in the subject. It's actually quite stressful for them. But if you can change the narrative and talk about content pieces, relevant topics, information, like really cool insights and hacks about the process, they're actually going to really enjoy speaking with you. And as I've said on these calls before, when you get them interested in the topic that you're discussing, so some of you have surfaced that they're renters, just curious, just want to see what my value is. They don't want to have any phone conversations, right? So yeah, a lot of great scenarios. When you start to surface these objections, so let's use Amandeep's objection, right? I don't want to have a phone conversation, and I text him back. I totally get that. I actually don't like talking on the people on the phone either. And then move on, text them again and say, so are you considering staying in the area or relocating to a different part of town, right? They're trying to end the conversation. And what you're doing is you're pivoting the conversation to talk about subjects that are interesting to them. And so what a lot of you do when someone says, I don't want to have a phone conversation, you'll say something like, okay, well, it's hard for me to really help you unless we talk on the phone. Okay, cool. Well, I didn't want to talk to you anyway, so bye. That's honestly what happens with a lot of these leads. But if you just, if you agree with them, yeah, I don't like talking on the phone either. So moving on, you in your head, you pat them on their heads. In your mind, you pat them on their head and you move right along in the conversation. Now, eventually, you're going to get to a point in this text conversation where it's reached its course. Like maybe they answered a couple questions And you have to have a value proposition. You have to have a reason for them to actually talk to you on the phone. And so the way that I would do that after talking to them, like, so let's say they want to move to the east side of town. Oh man, I love that side. We go out to eat there all the time. That's cool. Have you spoken to a lender yet? No, not yet. Oh, okay. Well, I know you said you don't want to talk about on the phone, but it's kind of hard to text. There's some things you should know about lending that I think would really help you. When do you think you'd have 5 minutes to chat about it? So you accommodated, you affirmed, you brought up a conversation, you asked a couple of questions, you surfaced what you believe to be is a topic that would be relevant to them. And that's where you start talking about getting on the phone for 5 minutes. You've got to get them to buy in to the reason for talking to you. You guys think that just because they requested a CMA that they're dying to talk to you. And candidly, they're just not. And that's because for most people that are considering selling their home, there's a low degree of urgency. When you have a low degree of urgency, you lack clarity, you lack certainty. And if you guys, like, if we're being honest with ourselves, I've got an 80 agent team. I forgot to say, I like to say that in the beginning. I've got an 80 agent team in Virginia Beach. I've been doing this 25 years and I wrote a best-selling book on lead conversion. That's why Meskula has me do these calls. And one of the things that my agents really struggle with is, recognizing that these people don't want to talk to us about selling. They want to talk, like, you've got to get them interested and bought into the conversation so that you can transition into what you want to talk about, but you've got to start with them. All right. So these are all really great scenarios. I think candidly, Meskula team, you guys probably already have these written down somewhere, but I think this is a great snapshot of what the user base is facing. So Vikas also said, one of the objections is, look, I just want to see what my value is. Okay, awesome. I think it's around this. I can't get too specific just because I haven't walked the property, but I would say ballpark around here. Give them what they ask for. Marketers call that micro conversions. Don't give them to the cent. You got to give them a reason to continue talking to you. So, okay, cool. It's a low range of 350, high of 500, depending on varying factors, your home's going to be somewhere in there. If the price was right, would you be open to selling in the next 6 to 12 months? I love that question. If the price was right, would you be open to selling in the next 6 to 12 months? There's something about 12 months that just decreases the pressure. Now, because this person's saying they're curious, right? And they're not that serious. That's their way of saying, I am not going to be sold anything today, Mr. Salesman, Mrs. Salesman. That's what they're saying. And so you just sidestep it, right? Here's the range. And then you ask them what their motivation is. What is their intent? If the price was right, would you be open to moving in the next year? Right? If they say yes, okay, pivot real quick because they're expecting you to go in for the close. Okay, you would. Well, let's just keep dreaming for a second. If you did sell the home, the price was right and you sold the home, where would you move? Do you see what's happening? You're helping people transition, and this is so important. Most of the leads that we get from online marketing, from all companies, are dreamers. They are dreaming. And this conversation that I am effectively teaching all of you that faithfully attend this Friday session is how to effectively transition a dreamer to a planner. This is so important. That's actually the sale on the first call. That's what you're selling. You are selling, helping them take a broad concept, considering selling, and transitioning it into actually planning what their future looks like. When you do this, the planning phase, you become valuable. The dreaming phase, they don't want to talk to you. They don't need you. But when you start asking questions about where they're moving to, what their dreams are, where they're going, have they spoken to a lender? Do they know if they've done any upgrades? Like all these little details, you're helping them to piece together just by answering the questions, how they need to be planning for the future. And as you do that, you become a valuable resource, and you'll know when you got them when they start asking you questions. Well, I was thinking about doing granite, but I wasn't sure if I should do quartz. Do you have an opinion on what the value difference would be? When they start asking those questions, they see you as a resource and you've got them. So seeing what my value is, give them a range and then move on. Jessica?
Okay, but let's say you transition to dreaming. So then like, is the next step to say, oh, I want to, like, if I can walk your property, I could give you a better estimate? Or do we start talking about, so where would you go? And let's start talking about that.
Yeah. I love to get them excited, because you can hear the first like 20% of the conversation. You can hear them kind of like not that excited that they're on the phone with you. So I personally like to get them excited about where they're going next. And you can hear the intonation in their voice start to go up in pitch. So I would be excited for them. If you can not everybody's going to tell you. Either they don't know, or they're not ready for it, or they don't want to talk to you. So like setting those people aside for a moment, the ones that actually start to gush and tell you, I want a bigger bedroom, or I want this, like those are the ones that you can just be excited with them for a moment. You can kind of dream together. And when you do that, you're also going to get a lot of information about what they're motivated by. So if they say things to you like, I want a larger kitchen so I can have family over. Family's important. I need an extra bedroom. You could say, oh, okay. Is there a reason in particular you want another bedroom? I want to have a child on the way, right? I want a yard, my dogs, whatever. They're offering little details for you to connect in an authentic way. Authenticity is the most compelling character trait in our culture for salespeople. If the consumer feels like I'm dealing with an authentic person, like they're not trying to get over on me, the likelihood of them working with you goes up significantly, because there's just not a lot of authentic people in our society. So get them to talk about where they're going if you can, and then you'll see that it'll segue into talking about the particulars, like how long it takes to sell, if they've been pre-approved, what they would need to do to prepare to sell their home. Like you're able to get into the details that we all want to talk about because we allow them the space to dream for a moment. Does that kind of make sense a little bit more, Jessica?
Yeah, I just am like, if I get them to dream, I get them to talk, then do I start sending them properties and see if I want to meet with them?
So they're dreaming about where they're going.
Mm-hmm. And
I need you to pick something about their dream that you can latch onto as the professional. Like, I don't care what it is. They could talk about moving to another state, and inside you're secretly disappointed, but how could you latch onto that? I can find you someone, right? So instead of you telling them what you should be doing, you're listening for an opportunity to serve them in a relevant way. That's the key here of having them dream. You're listening to them, and that response moment where you're being helpful, it's relevant. What we do is we say, here's the 3 things I'm going to say to every lead when I get them on the phone. I should come over, so I should give you a good CMA. I should, like, we have our shotgun approach, like, okay, that bullet didn't hit. Let's try this one, instead of listening and appropriately giving them some advice.
Well, I mean, more like, okay, let's say they say, yeah, I'd be ready to sell soon. And then I say, have you thought about where you'd like to go? Like, where you plan on going? And then this lady said to me, oh, I haven't thought about it. So then I'm like, okay, do I try to meet her? Or do we try to
I would keep asking questions. I would keep asking questions. Okay, so you haven't thought about where you're going to go. That sounds overwhelming. Do you like living in insert city name? Like, you're actually going to be a part of the decision-making process at that moment. If you don't do that, you're focused on selling. They don't have anywhere to go. It's a waste of your time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Unless they're under duress. Like, if they have to sell in 30 days or they're going to get a foreclosure notice, like, that's different. But for most people, that's not their situation. So in that situation, I would tell you, you don't have enough information yet. So be engaged in their story until you have enough information to where your value proposition is blatantly obvious. So I want you to learn more about their story before you decide how you can help them. Does that make sense? Okay, good. All right. Let's see. We've got just curious. So again, I'm going to affirm them. I'm going to say, I don't know anybody that doesn't own a home that isn't curious what their home's worth. Can you tell me about your home? How's the condition, right? Let them talk about it a little bit. And then I'm going to give them a range. I want to make good on the promise. They registered to get a CMA. I want to make good on that promise. It's important. but I don't want to give them so much information that they can hang up and never talk to me again. So I'm going to give them a range on the phone. Mr. Smith, I really need to walk the property to be specific, but I'll tell you, your neighborhood is at the low end of this and the high end of this. It sounds like you've done some work. So I'm making a big assumption here, but it sounds like it could be in the top half of the scenario. Hey, and while I've got you, I'm just curious, if the price was right and it made sense for you financially, are you open to receiving an offer in the next 6 to 12 months on your property? Right. That's just a great way to see how curious are they, right? So hopefully that gives you some context on the curious. We did the phone call, and thank you, Jessica, for the compliment. Jessica Caldwell for the compliment. I appreciate it. All right. So then Jessica Caldwell says, I have a daughter living them. One daughter is not cooperating with the conversation, but he really wants to sell. I've tried adding value by suggesting investment property, income qualifies. He's retired to Social Security. So I have the daughter's living with them. One, the daughter is not cooperating. Sounds like you don't really know 100% who the decision maker is. It might be the parent owns the house, but the daughter is kind of running the show a little bit. And so you've got to figure out what's motivating the both of them. The way that I like to do that is, as I say, look, everybody has an opinion about the process, and it's important that you're all heard. The way that I normally do this, and my other clients, notice I say that a lot. My other clients really appreciate it when I do a conference call or we all meet together and we talk about what's most important to you as the individual. So for example, Mary, the daughter, Mary, you might not want to move, and we need to factor that in. Mr. Smith, I know you own the home, but you also love your daughter. We need to talk about what the money looks like. If you were to sell the home, what would you do with it? And we needed to decide what's best for you. And I'm bringing this up because the market's so good. You could actually walk away with a lot more money than maybe you thought, right? So again, going back, you've got to get all the decision makers in the conversation together. And the way that I've found the best way to do this is it's almost like you become, and I don't mean to demean our role, but it almost is like you become a receptionist in a matter of sorts. Like I've had since I started a team in 2011, I've had probably 40 admin that have worked directly under me. And 4 of those admin were personal assistants. One of the 4 was amazing. Like I could just say, here's my problem, this is my problem. Can you do it? Like, I don't even know what to ask you to do, but can you do it? And she would just do it. Right. That's kind of the role we need for these people, these multiple personalities. You don't want to play telephone with each other, relaying the messages. Let's just all get on a call together. I'll send out a Zoom link, right? By the way, what I do with my Zoom link, I bought a vanity domain. So it's zoomwithbarry.com. I also have meetingwithbarry.com, but zoomwithbarry.com, so that I don't have to send them a really long URL to remember. Because then what you do is I used to use Google domains. I loved Google domains, but now they've switched to Squarespace. So I don't know where you buy your domains from. GoDaddy is like French or like Spanish. Like I can't understand any of GoDaddy. It's a really confusing website, but you buy it and you just do a redirect. So you can buy a vanity domain. So you can send it to your clients, say, hey, let's jump on a Zoom call, right? We also use Dialpad on the team. That's a conference call program to where everybody can call in on the phone and it's a conference call. But you get these multiple decision makers in one place and it works really well. And by the way, if you guys have a team, Dialpad can actually call all your agents so that they don't have to remember to call in for a conference call meeting, and everybody just answers their phone and they're on the meeting with you. Her other scenario, Jessica's, was the other said he will give his daughter money when he sells, doesn't want to spend another winter here, needs to talk to daughter. Coincidentally, both daughters are school teachers, so not employed in the summer. Okay, well, same situation, right? You're the dad is like thinking about it, but the daughters sounds like, they're good dads. They're trying to make their daughters happy. And so you need to find out what would make your daughters happy. And especially with family, I have come to realize that a lot of times family members oppose opposition and it has nothing to do with you, it actually is a manifestation of them caring for their family member. Let's use this as an example. A dad that comes into town for the home inspection. We've all been there. If you've been in real estate a while, you've all experienced this. The dad's like got a flashlight under the stove complaining about dust bunny. There's a lot of dust under the stove. We need to get like a mold inspector for this dust, right? And inside we're like rolling our eyes in the back of our head because it's ridiculous. The dad is just attempting to show his value to his daughter. It has nothing to do with his dad's opinion about the dust. It's not even about me. It's about the dad trying to show value to the daughter. So instead of working against it, sir, I'm the professional and I've hired a home inspector. Thank you, but no thank you. Man, that's a horrible idea. Dad, I love that you're looking for things that you can't see. Let's make sure the home inspector checks under that stove. High five. Let me know if you see anything else, man. I'm so glad you're here for your daughter, right? Same thing with these daughters. These daughters might be digging their heels in because they're worried that their up in age dad is being taken advantage of by a super slick salesman named Jessica Caldwell. No offense, Jessica, but that's the world we live in, right? And so by getting them all on a call together, you're going to start to allow them to work against the process. That's what they want to do. They want to protect their family member. Jessica's turned her video on. We're in trouble now. I'm just playing. But the parents or the daughters are, they might come against you a little bit like, well, I just don't know if it's a good time to sell. And daughter Mary, I'm so glad that you bring that up. Here's some data around this. It sounds like you really know what you're doing. You got a background in real estate, right? Like just play into it a little bit. Instead of realtors fight against the family members. And I don't care how good you are not going to be good enough at your craft to break up the trust between a daughter and a father, right? It just doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with my knowledge of real estate. It really is about the dynamics of their relationship. Any questions about any of this? Oh yeah, Kana. How do you pronounce your name? Kana Kennedy. She's got the same thing.
It's Kina. No,
Kina.
I don't have the same thing. Actually, I just stole that from you.
Oh, good. Steal it. That's why I shared it. It's a great way to brand yourself. So look, we're at the top of 30 minutes, but this is what I call roll call, right? Where everybody's kind of sharing what they're dealing with. And then I bullet fire go through. Can you just either put in the chat or a show of hands with your chat emoji, your reactions in Zoom? Did you find doing this, was this helpful for you guys going through some scenarios like this? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So lots of thumbs up. My agents really like it as well. Okay. Jessica said very Mario Morema and Jessica cut off. Okay. Perfect. So I'm not going to do this every week because I also want to spend time just like, going over some high level principles. But what I found with this, and we'll close with this, when we're in it, right, we're in our little, we're calling our leads, all we see are the objections and we start to believe them. For example, if the market's bad, everybody's saying the market's bad. We start believing, man, the market's bad. It's not a good time to buy. The second that happens, you're not making any money anymore because you've believed the objection. You've heard it so many times. And thank you, Karen. Always so encouraging. When you hear another salesperson say, oh, if I was in that situation, this is what I would say. And here's why. It starts to impact things. But let me leave you guys with this. When we're nervous, the part of our brain we use is fight or flight. It's instincts. When you're nervous, you use your instincts. And so some things that you should have next to your computer screen when you're calling leads, I'm just going to give you some examples, are compliment the objection. Because they're going to give you an objection and you're going to go, oh, okay. You're just curious. All right. That's cool. And you're going to forget everything that I taught you. But if you look up and you see the Post-it note, compliment their objection. I am so glad that you don't know what you're talking about. Of course they wouldn't say that, but you know what I mean? Like compliment it and then have one or two questions written out that you like. So my favorite two, with the one with selling is whenever you do decide to sell, are you going to stay in the area or you're going to relocate? The other one is if the price was right, Would you be open to selling in the next 6 to 12 months? So you write those questions down, big letters, and you're going to sound horrible when you read them. If the price was right, would you be open to selling in the next 6 to 12 months? Right? Like you're going to be able to tell it's reading. And guess what? It's still going to work. It's still going to work. My favorite one for buyers is, what are you hoping to change about where you live right now? Instead of telling them, what do you want? Which depends on them knowing clarity in the future. I'm asking them to look back in time and present. What's annoying about where you live? And as they complain to you, they've just listed their search criteria accidentally. It's called a Socratic question. Socrates was a super smart dude, and he taught his students through asking questions. And that's what this is. This is. Fun fact, my book, Too Nice for Sales, was going to be called The Socratic Method of Selling. It was a book in the 80s. I was really disappointed about that. But anyway, all right. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. And thanks for joining. We'll see you next Friday.